Hello and welcome to what is the 40th editions of MHQ's Foundation 101 podcast, where today I'm joined by Daniel Word from Cult Wine. Daniel, good morning.
Morning, Jan. Thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure. And first question to me actually is why wine? Well, first, because it's a very cool asset class. Two, because it's an asset class that we at MHQ like a lot. And more importantly, because we have actually been structuring some of these collections through Foundation. So I thought it would be cool to get an expert from the other side to give a couple of tips on what to do and not to do in this context. So when we talk about structure optimization, really, we are looking at traditionally businesses. We are looking at other high value assets like real estate. We are looking at portfolios. We are looking at increasingly a little bit more exotic assets. We talked on this channel of digital assets, so cryptocurrency, etc. And we did not one, not two, but three webcasts on this topic because it has multiple angles in terms of business continuity, asset protection, etc. Now, one asset class that we structure increasingly more are so-called exotic high-value assets. You can think of art, you can think of jewelry, you can think of a car collection, you name it. But increasingly, we've seen people with a reasonably large cellar or several, up to 9 by my counting, of wine. So that's why we thought of having you, Daniel, as the go-to specialist with your firm. And what about we start with this? So wine as an asset class, why and for whom would that be?
Yeah, thank you, Jan. So I think, one of the most topical things, especially at the moment in terms of why people are looking at wine as an asset class, is primarily for diversification. Yep. Over the last couple of years, wider markets have been increasingly volatile. Obviously, a lot of opportunity within that. But I think the one thing that's definitely driven, a lot of traffic to this asset class as a whole is that diversification aspect. And wine, as an asset, really does offer, incredible diversification benefits. The correlation to the wider markets is very, very low. Alongside that, you've also got great long-term performance. If you look at the performance of our sector across the last 30 years, not only has it been very, very consistent, but the returns have also been very good as well. The average return, if you look at it over the last 30 years, has been around 10 to 10.5% per annum. So as we've got, in terms of diversification, long-term returns, it's also, tangible. Which is, of course, very, very popular and very, very important, especially in the current climate. And one of the, the main reasons that really drives pricing is the limited supply side of wine. It's an asset that's produced in finite qualities by, some of the top wine producers around the world. So when we're talking about fine wine investment, we're talking about, less than 1% of the global wine production. So the supply side of things is very, very limited. And that's, of course, really important when it comes to the, to the future performance side of things.
Which is not unlike being in the financial industry and having access to, say, the hottest hedge fund or the best service within an investment bank. So that's clear to me. So let's say I want exposure. So where do I start if I'm a newbie and I want to throw myself in this liquid pond?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously, like any investment, acquisition is one of the, is one of the most important things. And I think, we always encourage collectors to look at the top regions, when starting a wine collection. And by the top regions, I'm primarily referring to France, and within France specifically, Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne. These regions have been producing consistently top quality wines for, hundreds of years. They've got the best demonstrable track record in terms of performance, but also, just as importantly, liquidity. The secondary market for Bordeaux, Burgundy globally is the largest. So when viewing this as an investment / collection, that liquidity aspect is very, very important on the back end as well.
So the resale side, right? And that's where
absolutely,
You don't try to do it in your corner. You deal through professionals, both on the buy and the sell side. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that, that's also a very important, very important part of the, the investment service is relying on somebody that has that market expertise to ensure that, upon liquidation, you are exposed to the best areas for getting the best prices on the secondary market. It's very easy to collect wines, but that end-to-end investment side, it's really important that you've got the right people in your corner when finding liquidity, in the global market to exit.
So what about what you mentioned before, which is the short supply? Because everyone wants the top of the pyramid. So how about access? How do I get access to what I would define as the right wines?
Yeah, so access again is a very, very important, very important part of this. And additionally, access at the right price, of course. So our company was established in 2007. And our history within wine, dates back even further than that. One of the founders has been in the wine industry since 1990. So we've got, great networks within, the wine industry as a whole. In terms of sourcing, we go as direct as possible to the source. So we have great relationships with negociants. Yeah. So in Bordeaux, I don't know if you're familiar with the negociant system, but you can't actually go directly to a chateau as an individual or a company and purchase wines. You have to do that via a negociant system. So that comes on to, I guess, the next, side of that cycle in terms of, opportunities within things like en primeur. So as a business, we offer clients direct access to en primeur, which is essentially the wine futures market. So when a wine is produced, it obviously remains in barrel for a 2-year period. The chateau actually release the opportunity to buy those wines as a futures contract. So a certification of a 12 or a 6 bottle case 2 years prior to bottling. So that's one of the most popular ways of investing in the market. But like anything, you've got to be really, really selective when you're doing that. So, we have a very strict investment criteria when looking at any wine. So we're not just looking at, okay, is this wine from a good vintage with a good score? There's obviously a lot more that goes into, whether a wine's going to perform as an investment outside of, okay, it's scored well and it's from a nice year. We look at, how previous vintages have, improved in bottle over a 10-year period. We're looking at, what is the, the chateau or the brand's marketing project over the next 5 to 10 years. Which markets are they going to try and push their wines into? So that's all circling back, I guess, to that strict investment criteria aspect of the, of the product. You've got to be really strict, especially, in the current market. En primeur has become very challenging in recent years, to acquire the right wines at the right prices. So you really have to maintain that selective approach at the moment.
We talking for pretty much any asset class about custody. So when you talk about financial assets, you want a prime custodian who's of great quality. We had the representative of one of these on our webcast last week. If you want storage of digital assets, we recommend that you go with a tier 1 platform and not necessarily one that has popped last week. The same is true for wine. So can you perhaps make us aware of key criteria with respect to storage, but also the resale aspect, which is very related?
Sure. So storage ownership is one of the, again, one of the most important things when looking at this purely as an investment vehicle. So all of the wines should be stored and insured in a government bonded warehouse. That's how you maintain perfect provenance throughout the investment term. As soon as wines leave, this bonded warehouse system, whether that's in Bordeaux, London, Hong Kong, it's all under the same system, the bonded warehouse system. It can be traced, it can be tracked to give it that authenticity and provenance. Yep. Once wines leave that system, they lose that provenance because you lose that track record of where that wine's been stored, what temperature it's been stored at, and thus you lose market value and also liquidity. So storage is very, very important. So we set up accounts for obviously all of our clients at the bonded warehouse system. So that would be the main thing to encourage anybody looking at this as an investment to do, is make sure that you have proper storage, set up for, for the wines. Protection wise, all of the wines are stored and insured, again, to protect them against any, damage inside the warehouse. It's extremely rare, but if you've got a £10,000 case of wine, you want to know that in any event, there's protection of the asset at all times. So all of the wines are fully stored and insured in any of the bonded warehouse facilities to full replacement value rather than purchase price.
So this is the storage and protection side and monitoring as well of what you have. How can I monitor it from as actually an owner as opposed to a storer, and how does that tie up with the time to resale?
So in terms of how you can manage that as an owner, so we have an all-encompassing online platform which links up not only to live values in terms of the investment side of the reporting, but also to that bonded warehouse system that we've just spoken about. So you can also go on there, you can get all of your certification for the wines that you hold, the rotation numbers and the storage records directly from the bonded warehouse. So that's the main place that our clients, and any client holding wine can access all of that information. In terms of the holding period, this is largely seen as a medium to long-term investment, but to ensure that clients get the best out of this, as an investment, it isn't just a buy and hold strategy anymore. There are pockets of growth. There are different cycles. We'd spoken about one earlier on, in the conversation on Primeur. That's typically a 2-year future cycle where you can adopt as a client a short and a medium term strategy. You can hold multiple cases to trade shorter term, but then also hold on to some positions for the for the longer term as well.
So really it's the underlying asset is slightly different, but the strategy is a real financial investment strategy driven by passion, perhaps by interest, probably, but also by absolute return. So get organized. And one of the reasons we actually wanted to do this webcast is actually to give you the floor, because I have so many clients that actually come to us and say, oh, can you help me? Can you recommend? Can you introduce to a chateau? And now we say, no, just go to Cult. It works perfectly fine. So you see it here, and this is a live case. It exists. A couple of clients have set up segregated holding companies, segregated asset class for their wine cellar, be there in Napa Valley, in Bordeaux, Burgundy, London, doesn't matter, even in Dubai, would you believe? So this exists as an asset class. It's also fun, but as with every valuable asset, protect it, monitor it, and get the most out of it, whether by reselling it or drinking it. Daniel, thanks a lot for this. If people want to get in touch with you and your firm, they know where to find you, and hopefully see you soon around the table.
Super. Thank you very much, Anne.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Thank you.